So my parents never told me I have a twin brother. This whole time, my adopted parents never once let me know I have a twin brother. Our bio parents died when we were about 1 year old. We went into foster care for a few months, then my parents adopted me. He was adopted a few years later by his parents too. My parents never told me I had a brother, and not only never attempted for us to spend time together, but they declined when his parents came forward and wanted my parents to let us get to know each other when we were children. And my parents picked a new name for me. I never knew of any of this until last year when he approached me. Parents denied at first, but eventually admitted to everything. Since then, we've been getting to know each other and getting close. Since COVID hit, I've been spending a lot of time with him, and we've been bonding very well. He has 2 mothers who are great too. They're very nice to him and me and always make me feel welcome and relaxed. My parents are upset about all this and keep telling me that I should keep my distance. I'm doing it too fast, and I'm trusting him and his parents too soon. I'm gonna end up hurting myself and things like that. They also don't like it that I've developed an attachment to my birth name, and he does call me by that name and I like it. I think this is even more of a big deal for them than anything else. And then there is my grandma, who hates my brother with a burning passion, who thinks I dress too inappropriately in front of him because, quote, girls shouldn't wear thin clothes, robes, or swimsuits in front of stranger boys. As if he's just a random guy to me. She lives with us, and if he comes over, she always plays detective to figure out what we're doing together. Her objections are that I dress too modestly. We laugh too much. We sit or lay down on the bed too close together, and worst of all, we close the door when we're in my room. Yeah, because she doesn't respect privacy. I should go to jail for these serious crimes. So, last night, my parents and grandma had a sit down with me to voice their concerns. They accused me of forgetting about my real family and losing my soul. What does that even mean? They say they're worried about me and will only allow me to continue spending time if I'm agreeing to these 3 boundaries. Number 1, I'm always to be referred to the name that my parents picked, rather than birth name. Number 2, I should be a lot more careful about what I wear in front of him. This is my grandma's rule. She wants me to basically dress like her. I don't think my parents care about this rule as much. Number 3, my time with brother must be supervised by my parents or grandmother. That means no going out or at his place or with the door closed. I find all these rules to be very unreasonable, and I find their objections to be childish, and I think my grandma needs some help. How do I keep the peace whilst trying to see my brother still? Hey guys, I actually found a very interesting comment in the comment section. Here it is. There's a fascinating documentary. It's about 3 identical strangers and an experiment in the 60s, where twins and triplets were adopted to different families and monitored by scientists to see the effects of nature versus nurture. The documentary shows that there were some really negative mental health impacts to the separated twins. Maybe watching it would help your parents be a bit more empathetic. Guys, I have to admit, that's some really good advice. I didn't know that documentary existed, but maybe it could help OP let her parents see how much this could affect her mental state. Let me know what you would do if you just found out you have a long-lost brother, especially a twin. That's pretty shocking. The next story we're going to look at is, my extremely abusive mother fled the country after being charged with a felony. My estranged aunt wants us to reconnect. She then told my mother I'd go with her to pick her up at the airport. So, what do? I obviously don't go there. I show up with police. I really like my aunt. She's the only family member I have who's ever been kind to me or caring aside from my younger siblings, who I rarely see anymore. My life's pretty complicated, and so is my situation, so I'm coming here for advice. I really don't enjoy rehashing my life too much, but it's been helping me feel better every time I post here. Just to preface, I'll tell you about me. I don't know if I'm a good person or not anymore. I try not to think about it. I'm willing to betray my aunt to see my mother in jail. I don't like seeing anyone hurt. I try to treat every single person with kindness, and I hate drama and violence. I'm focusing all my effort into becoming a better version of me. I'm 22 days sober. I've been saving and will be moving out of this homeless shelter in 2 months or less. I'm going back to college in the fall. I'm more determined now than ever. The only thing I can't seem to fix are my feelings. That's always staying with me. Anyways, for 19 years of my life, I lived with my mother. She badly abused me for 17 of those years. A lot of physical violence. I've been beaten bloody with all kinds of fun household objects like a clothing iron. Both the actual iron and the cord. Random tools, heavy metal wrench to the face once. Chairs that she smashed wooden kitchen chairs to pieces across my back. Dislocating my elbow when I was cleaning too slowly, before raining down heavy punches after I fell. The chair was for cleaning so slow. The punches were for daring to curse after being hit by a chair. Extension cords and broomsticks were her favorite, though. She could grip them better. She broke so many across my body I still have scars years later, albeit faded a bit. She also favored using the buckle end of the belt to beat me. Although most of the time she just sticks to her fist and her feet. I've lost count of the amount of time she's kicked me down the stairs and how I just stopped walking ahead of her when she'd yell at me to go downstairs. I remember getting beaten worse for getting blood on the wall after I fell. If that weren't enough, she seemed to enjoy attacking me on both fronts to the point where I just shut down emotionally. Whenever she'd start it. By the time I was 12, I just learned to detach because crying and being sad did not help. It just tended to reinvigorate her. "What are you crying for?" She'd just start up again. Just a constant daily barrage of trash talk such as, "You're disgusting," or "You're as worthless as your father, and when you turn 18 you can die and duck off for all I care." Or whenever I had medical issues of some kind of problem, her response was always, "I don't care." So, not to be too depressing, but I've never really considered myself having family, aside from my aunt. My little siblings were born when I was in my teens, and because they spent so much time around my mother, I avoided spending time around them. I also developed this kind of distaste for them because she treated them completely different, although they could not escape her abusive tendencies. They never got it anywhere near as badly as I did. My actual father was never around. He's an alcoholic and an equally reprehensible person. He just wasn't around to beat me or make things worse, but I bet he would've. I did get a fun trait from him though, but I'm doing my best to stay sober. My stepfather was godsend, but he left my mother when I was 6 to 7 because she used to beat on him too. He commented on how he's surprised I've never harmed her or myself. If only he knew how close I was to both. I tried to stay close to him, but I have trouble, really, keeping up with the relationships. I've never been great at being consistent, especially pertaining to maintaining relationships. I don't know if a constant state of nothingness is an emotion, but that's how I feel most of the time. It's hard to care about their lives. I've just learned to take care of my own self. I know I sound like a horrible friend. I apologize to them all the time. I make sure my actions are not in step with my feelings. I go out of my way to try to be a better friend to the people in my life every single day. Through my entire childhood, my aunt, aka my mother's sister, has seen it all. She's seen my mother beat the crap out of me countless times. My aunt has watched me bleed more times than I'm sure she's comfortable with. She always talked to me like an adult and expressed remorse that I have to deal with that, and that she understands, quote, "My sister can be a bit erratic at times," which is a complete underestimate or understatement, but I digress. After I was forced out at 19 while in college with no job, I basically stopped reaching out to my aunt. She emailed me once asking me how I've been in 2013/14. But aside from that, it's radio silence on both ends. It's not on purpose, I just had a lot going on. I failed all my finals, looking for work on and off homelessness, and drinking myself into oblivion. Things got very complicated with my mother's life, because I decided to actively ruin it last year as a form of revenge. She lost her job, lost her fiancé, her children, and I'm not really sure about her house. She probably doesn't know it's me. She ended up leaving the country because I reported her to child services, and she ended up being charged with a felony and misdemeanor. How she was allowed to leave, I don't know, but here's the part where I need advice on. My mother reached out to me via a phone call where I admitted to peeing in her iced tea as a kid reluctantly while abroad in South America. After years of silence, I randomly decided to reach out to my aunt, and we went to a show together as well as a dinner. We had a great time, and there was no problems at all. She had brought up my mother, but I told her I didn't want to talk about her. She respected that at first, but days after we hung up and were chatting on the phone, well, she dropped a bomb on me. A nuclear bomb. She's picking up my mother from the airport next week and asked me to show up with her. She wants to be the mediator of sorts for us so we can talk. She then started telling me that she told my mother all about my life. My mother had zero knowledge of my life in the last 5 years, and I wanted to keep it that way. She said she could not keep a secret from her sister and apologized. I thought I didn't care about my mother, but the thought of her just talking makes me blood boil and my stomach flip over in knots. I don't want her knowing about my life or what I do. This is the same woman who told me my photography, which is the most important thing to me in life, was a waste of time and that I'd always be bad at it. I didn't even know my mother was planning on coming back. I don't want to see her, but I realize this is the perfect chance to finally see in her cuffs for the first thing she's done to me and my little siblings. I'm strongly considering alerting the detectives that I'll be at the airport to pick her up so they can meet us and arrest her. She skipped on her court dates. I know my aunt loves my mother, and I wouldn't want to hurt her or break her trust. But this is my chance before my mom disappears to some place out of state. So guys, I need advice, please. Should I keep my aunt around in my life after this? It really bothered me that I've asked her to keep my life to herself, but she told my mother anyways. And then told my mother we'd come pick her up and talk, without asking me how I felt about it first. She's always been kind to me. I'm tired of being alone. It is messed up to pretend I'm going with her to the airport with good intentions only so I can be around long enough to call the police and watch my mother get arrested. Yeah, so, I don't know. I'm basically going with no intention of reconcile, and it will 100% ruin any plans my aunt has. So, am I overreacting to my aunt telling my mother about my life? My mother is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I'd rather have not existed in this first place. But here I am, alone, floating on this rock. Well, now I can finally bring to fruition the revenge I've set in motion since last year. My aunt, yes, will be devastated if her sister goes to prison. I wouldn't be conflicted if it wasn't any other person. I don't want to hurt someone who's never hurt me. Okay, so here's one of the top comments that actually had OP reply back to it. The aunt also allowed OP to be homeless and did not do anything to help. Just sending an email and going to the movies means jack squat. Now she wants to reunite her with her mother? For what reason? She knows how poorly OP was treated by Mom. She has and is condoning it. I would call in the police without a doubt. Or second thought. That's when OP saw that comment and replied with this. I didn't really ask my aunt for help though. Whenever my mother would kick me out as a kid, my aunt would let me stay there for a few days, but not longer than that. I wasn't good at opening up the feelings or help that I needed. So I could not expect her to help, I guess. So guys, let me know what you think about those two comments. Do you think that the aunt could have been more helpful and she was definitely in the wrong too? Let me know your opinion on that. The final story of the day I'm very excited for. Guys, this is Uncle Henry. This story has made its way around before, so if you've heard it, it's worth a second listen to. But for anyone that hasn't, Uncle Henry is simply a hero. So my dad, he was born in rural Texas in 1915. He was the youngest of 10 kids, all a year apart, so his oldest sibling, Henry, was about 11 years older than him. My dad's father died in an accident not long after he was born, so Henry became the man of the house at about age 11. When my dad was about 9 years old, 1924, a gang of men came through their small town kidnapping children to work as slaves, picking cotton about 400 miles away. Apparently, this was not an unusual occurrence at the time. My dad and 2 of his siblings were taken. Henry, who was now 18, came home from working on a cattle drive. About a week later, found his mother hysterical about the kidnapping of the 3 of her children. Being the man of the house at age 18, Henry strapped on his father's 6 guns, dual holsters on each hip, and set out to get his 3 siblings back. He gathered clues about the gangs from other town folks who also had children stolen. He headed east to where he was pretty certain the kids were taken, riding in empty train boxcars and even on the roofs of moving trains. It took him several weeks, but through talking to locals along the way who heard rumors of child abductions, he finally narrowed down to a few cotton farms where he thought the children were. My dad, who was 9 years old at this time of this happened, tears in his eyes when he said this to me. He and 2 of his brothers, along with about a dozen other kidnapped kids, have been held captive on this cotton ranch for over 2 months. They'd given up hope. They never thought they'd see home again or the rest of their family. They were kept locked in a barn, fed scraps, and forced to pick cotton in the hot Texas sun. They were beaten if they cried or refused to work. One day, working in the fields, they heard Henry's voice calling their name. They looked up and saw my Uncle Henry walking towards them, and they started running towards him. When one of their captors rode up on a horse and started yelling, Henry pulled out one of his guns and shot the man dead cold-blooded. My dad wasn't even sure the man had a gun. It didn't matter. The gunshot drew a couple more of the ranchers and captors over, and Henry didn't even think twice, shot them both dead. My dad, scared, ran up and hugged my uncle. He said 3 words, "Let's go home." My dad tells me they rode on train boxcars all the way back west to their little Texas town, along with a couple of other kids that were stolen from the same town. When they got back to their small farm, my dad said his mom fainted, passed out from shock when she saw them. He said Henry put the 6 guns away. He never touched another gun to the day he died. There was no law enforcement, no investigation about what happened, that my uncle murdered 3 men to get his siblings back. It was basically still the Wild West in Texas in the 1920s. The boys eventually all joined the Army and Navy and all served and survived World War II. My dad did not tell me this story until after Henry died. I'd always known my Uncle Henry as a sweet-spoken, small man of about 5'4", not even 100 pounds at most. A man who went on to own a printing shop. I would have never imagined him capable of the feats of heroics he performed at the age of 18 to bring his family back together. Well, you know what they say. I guess there's a hero in all of us. So guys, just let me know. Is Uncle Henry, say yes, Uncle Henry is, or no, Uncle Henry's not a hero? I think we know the answer to that question, though. Guys, what an incredible story. Could you imagine being lost on that farm, picking cotton all day long, thinking there's no way I'm going to get back to my family, and I'm only a little kid. I'm 9 years old. What do I even do? I can't even tie my shoes. And then all of a sudden, come riding on a white stallion horseback is Uncle Henry, ready to scoop his siblings and get the heck out of there. But not without slicing out a few sips of justice first. Guys, smash that like button, type Henry You're a Hero down below, and let's get this video to 1,000 likes. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Rest in peace, Uncle Henry.